Have you ever walked into a place and felt like you were being judged before you even spoke a word? That's what happens every day, all across America. Sometimes it's subtle, a quick glance, a slight change in tone, but other times it's blatant and ugly. Today we're going to see what happens when those scales of justice get tipped in the wrong direction and how a quiet woman ends up turning everything upside down. Hey there, story lovers. If you like this kind of real-life, thought-provoking tale, please consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell. It helps more stories get told. Now let's get back to our story. Bank teller calls the security on a black woman, but gets a shocking reality check. The lobby of First National Bank gleamed under the bright, sterile lights. It was a Tuesday, usually a busy day, with a steady stream of customers moving from one teller window to another. The air was thick with the low hum of conversations, the clickety-clack of keyboards, and the occasional chime of a transaction completed. It looked, on the surface, like a well-oiled machine, but beneath the veneer of efficiency lay a subtle current of judgment, a quiet hierarchy that was felt by everyone who walked through its doors. At window 3, Brittany Miller, a 26-year-old teller with a smile as polished as her manicured nails, was in her element. She was a vision of perfect blonde hair, designer clothes, and an air of confident superiority that bordered on arrogance. Brittany saw her job not as a service, but as a way to climb the social ladder, treating customers differently based on their appearances. The ones in expensive suits and designer handbags received her sweetest smiles and the most efficient service. Others, less affluent in their presentation, got curt responses and barely a glance. Across from her, at window 1, was Olivia Davis, a 28-year-old teller who couldn't be more different. Liv, as she was affectionately known, had a warm smile that reached her eyes, and she treated every customer with equal respect, regardless of their background. She had seen the way Brittany operated, and it bothered her, a constant reminder of the quiet biases that permeated even the most pristine of places. She tried to speak up sometimes, but it felt like talking to a brick wall. Into this carefully choreographed scene walked Eleanor Thompson, a woman who appeared to be in her early 40s. She was dressed in simple clothes, a plain skirt, and a comfortable blouse, her dark hair pulled back into a practical ponytail. She moved with a quiet confidence, her dark eyes observing everything with an almost unnerving calm. She wasn't flashy, she didn't demand attention, but there was something about her that commanded respect. She was the kind of person who could blend into a crowd, yet somehow also stood out. She stepped into line, her gaze sweeping across the lobby, a subtle smile playing on her lips. Brittany noticed Ellie immediately, not with interest, but with a kind of disdainful indifference. To Brittany, Ellie was a nobody, another face in the crowd of the ordinary. She greeted her with a practiced, almost insincere smile. "Next, please, what can I do for you?" The tone was polite but lacked genuine warmth. "I'd like to withdraw some funds, please," Ellie said, her voice low and calm. "Sure thing," Brittany said, her fingers already tapping away at her keyboard. She didn't ask for an account number. She just tapped away, waiting for Ellie to hand over a card. Ellie, in turn, didn't budge. She was waiting quietly to see how far Brittany would go before she'd realize her mistake. "Account number?" Brittany asked impatiently. Ellie simply raised an eyebrow and replied, "I'm waiting for you to ask the right question." Brittany was confused. "Okay, well, how can I look you up without an account number or a name? Are you going to tell me what you want?" "I'm waiting for you to ask me what kind of account I have," Ellie said, her eyes looking directly into Brittany's. Brittany was getting more and more impatient. A bead of sweat started to form on her brow. She huffed a sigh and snapped, "Fine. What kind of account do you have?" "A Premier Access account," Ellie replied quietly. Brittany's face changed. This was a different kind of account. This meant that she would actually have to look Ellie up and treat her respectfully, not something she was prepared to do with someone dressed the way Ellie was. "Okay, one moment," Brittany said, now visibly agitated. At this point, Olivia had been watching the whole interaction from across the lobby. She'd been on the phone with a customer, but her eyes kept shifting toward Ellie and Brittany. She knew that something wasn't right. She decided to excuse herself from the phone and walk over to the other teller station. "Is everything all right?" she asked. her tone warm and concerned. Brittany waved her off impatiently. Everything is fine, Liv. I've got this. Just go take care of your own customers. I don't mind waiting, really. Take your time, Ellie said to Brittany. But her eyes met Olivia's, and she smiled knowingly. Just then, a sharp voice cut through the air, demanding attention. Chad Harrison, a 46-year-old businessman with an expensive suit and an even more expensive watch, had arrived. He had the kind of entitlement that only wealth could buy, and he strode straight to Brittany's window, ignoring the line of people waiting. I need to be helped immediately, he declared, his voice filled with impatience. Brittany's face lit up like a Christmas tree. Of course, Mr. Harrison. Right away. She immediately abandoned Ellie, turning her full attention to Chad. What can I do for you today, sir? Her tone was suddenly sweet and syrupy. Olivia, seeing the blatant disregard for Ellie, stepped in. Brittany, that's not right. This customer was here first. She was talking about Ellie, of course. Oh, it's all right, Ellie said quickly. I don't mind. I'm sure Mr. Harrison is very busy. Her voice was still calm, but there was a subtle shift in her eyes, as if she was finally seeing the true nature of the situation. Chad, not even bothering to look at Ellie, scoffed. Exactly. Some of us have important things to do. He tossed a condescending glance in Ellie's direction, making her feel smaller than ever. Brittany continued to fawn over Chad, completely ignoring Ellie's presence. What can I do for you today, Mr. Harrison? It's always a pleasure to see you. Just need to transfer some funds, Chad said dismissively, pulling out his diamond-encrusted platinum card. I trust you'll make sure it's done immediately. Brittany nodded vigorously, her eyes practically sparkling. She had completely forgotten about Ellie, now staring at them with a very different expression in her eyes, a look of subtle disappointment and something much more dangerous. You know what, Ellie said quietly. I think maybe I won't withdraw any funds today after all. I'll just let you all take care of Mr. Harrison. Brittany barely looked up. She just snapped at her. Fine. She continued to coo over Chad. Ellie stood for a moment, then without another word, turned and walked away from the counter. But she didn't leave the bank. She sat down in one of the chairs by the front doors, a patient look on her face. Olivia watched her, a growing sense of injustice bubbling in her chest. She was beginning to understand that something much bigger was going on here. A few minutes later, David Sterling, the branch manager, a man more interested in playing golf than managing a bank, walked over to Brittany's station. Everything all right over here? He asked, his voice lacking any genuine concern. Just taking care of Mr. Harrison, Mr. Sterling, Brittany said, flashing him a quick smile. Good, good, he said, looking over his shoulder. We want to keep our VIPs happy. He seemed oblivious to the simmering tension in the air. As David walked away, he passed by Ellie. He gave her a look of disdain, then continued on to his office. Olivia, finally able to break free from the phone call, walked toward Ellie. I'm so sorry about that, she said, sincerity evident in her voice. That wasn't right. Ellie looked at her and smiled. It's all right. It's good to know who people really are. Still, I should have said something sooner, Olivia continued, feeling guilty for not standing up to Brittany. It's not your fault, Ellie responded, her eyes twinkling. Sometimes things need to play out in order to show their true colors. With that, Ellie pulled out her own card. It wasn't a flashy platinum card like Chad's. It was simple, black, with some strange symbols on the front. Olivia had never seen anything like it. Would you mind scanning this for me? Ellie asked, handing the card over. Olivia took the card, feeling a strange energy emanating from it. She scanned the card, but the machine immediately glitched and an alarm went off. Both of them jumped back, shocked by what had just happened. What in the world was that? Olivia asked. I've never seen that before. I know, Ellie replied, but it's about to get a whole lot more interesting. Before Olivia could respond, the machine suddenly shut down and a red light started blinking all over the terminal. This is not good, Olivia thought as she tried to make sense of what had happened. Just then, David Sterling came rushing over to the counter, his face ashen. What happened? Why is the system down? He demanded. Olivia tried to explain. I was just trying to help this customer, but the machine glitched and an alarm went off. You don't understand, David replied, heaving a sigh. That alarm indicates a card outside our system. It's a top-level account. We have to report this immediately. He was rushing around the counter, looking at Ellie, his eyes darting up and down. What's your name? What kind of account is this? Are you authorized to use this card? He demanded. My name is Eleanor Thompson, and I'm an authorized user of this premier account. Ellie replied calmly, not batting an eye. David stared at the card, his mind racing, his eyes widened and his face paled, realizing he had been incredibly rude to this woman. You are. Yes, Ellie replied calmly. David, realizing what was happening, immediately changed his tone. Oh, Ms. Thompson, I am so sorry. I had no idea. I was just doing my job and trying to handle things quickly. Just then, a notification popped up on his computer. He gasped when he read it, his face paling even further. This can't be right, he said, his voice quivering. This can't possibly be right. He called over to Brittany. Brittany, did you see who was here earlier? Do you remember? Brittany was clearly shaken. She tried to think back, but couldn't remember. David called over to Chad. Mr. Harrison, do you remember who that woman was who you had pushed away earlier? Chad looked confused. You mean the poor lady? I think I saw her walk away. Why? David turned his attention back to his computer screen, his eyes now wide with fear. It appears, David said, his voice barely a whisper, that the card belongs to our CEO, Mr. Ethan Carter. The room went silent. Brittany's face turned pale. Chad's smugness faded, and Olivia's eyes widened in shock. And to make matters worse, David continued, his voice shaking, the account name does not match the name on the card. The card is in the name of Ethan Carter's financial advisor. What does that mean? Brittany asked, fear creeping into her voice. It means that this woman, David said, pointing directly at Ellie, is an imposter, a fraud. She stole that card and has no right to use it. Ellie, who had been silent throughout all of this, finally spoke. I am not a fraud. I am authorized to use this card. You just don't have access to the information. And I should just take your word for it? David replied, his voice laced with sarcasm. You just showed up here looking like that, and now you want me to believe you're someone important? I don't need you to believe anything, Ellie replied calmly. The truth will come out. Just then, the front door of the bank swung open, and a man strode in, his eyes scanning the room. He was tall, handsome, with an aura of power that commanded attention. It was Ethan Carter, the CEO of First National Bank, and his eyes locked directly on Ellie. What is going on here? He demanded, his voice full of rage. He looked at David Sterling and said, I told you to run a clean shop. David cowered back in fear. I'm so sorry, Mr. Carter. I had no idea. Ethan didn't care about his excuses. He looked at Ellie and took a deep breath. Ma'am, are you all right? Please come with me. He then turned around to face everyone in the lobby. Everyone needs to step away from this area, please. Let's go. Ethan approached Ellie slowly, respectfully, and held out his hand. I am so sorry about this. Ellie looked at his hand and took it with a smile. It's all right, Ethan. It all happened for a reason. Ethan led Ellie into a private conference room, the eyes of the entire lobby following them. The room was deathly silent. Brittany and Chad looked at each other in horror, their faces pale and their eyes wide with disbelief. David was sweating profusely, trying to make sense of the situation, his mind racing. Olivia watched, bewildered, but also relieved that Ethan had come to save the day. Once inside the conference room, Ethan turned to Ellie with a mix of gratitude and concern. I am so sorry about what happened. I had no idea. I'll fix this. It's all right, Ethan, Ellie said calmly. It's important to see how people act when no one is watching, and I thank you for coming in to help resolve the situation. Ethan took a deep breath. I just can't believe that they would treat you that way, and what's worse is I had no idea that any of this was happening. Ellie smiled knowingly. We are all blind to things that don't concern us. I see that now more than ever. Ethan shook his head. It was horrible. I saw what you had to go through when I walked in here, and I am so sorry. You didn't deserve that. It's all right. You had your own things to learn, Ellie responded. Well, I'm ready to learn now. What should I do to fix it? Ethan asked, a look of determination in his eyes. First, Ellie said, we have to go back out there so everyone can hear this. The two of them walked out of the conference room and made their way back to the center of the bank's lobby. David Sterling was shaking in his boots. Brittany was on the verge of tears, and Chad looked completely deflated. Olivia stood nearby, still processing everything that had happened. "All right, everyone," Ethan said, his voice booming across the lobby. "I know you all have a lot of questions. Let me explain what just happened here today." He turned and faced Ellie and extended his hand. "This is Eleanor Thompson, my most trusted financial advisor. I asked her to come in today to test the system, to see if things are working, to see how people are treated. I had no idea things were so bad." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. A hush fell over the lobby. Ethan continued, "Ms. Thompson is not just my financial advisor. She is also my mentor, my friend, and she helped me build this entire company from the ground up. And to treat her or anyone like her is completely unacceptable." He turned his attention to Brittany and David, his eyes burning with anger. "Brittany, I am absolutely disgusted with your behavior. You will gather your things and leave immediately. Your employment with this bank is terminated, effective immediately." Brittany began to cry. "But, Mr. Carter, I didn't know. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to." Ethan cut her off. "I don't care about your excuses. You should know better than this." He turned to David, his voice cold and sharp. "David, I'm equally disgusted with you. I put you in charge of this branch and you let it fall apart. You have failed this bank. You too will leave immediately, and your employment with this bank is terminated immediately." David tried to beg, "Mr. Carter, I promise I'll do better. I'll change. Please don't fire me." "I've given you too many chances," Ethan replied. "You have let me down, and you have let down all the people in this room. This has been completely unacceptable." He then turned his attention to Chad, his voice now filled with contempt. "And Mr. Harrison, I'm appalled by your behavior. Your disrespect for others is unacceptable. As of today, you are no longer welcome in any First National Bank." Chad scoffed. "You can't do that. I'm a valued customer. I have tons of money in this bank." "Not anymore, you don't. I will be withdrawing your entire balance today, and we will be closing your accounts. You are no longer a valued customer. In fact, you are a danger to the well-being of the people in this room and in any other room you walk into," Ethan said, his voice filled with venom. He then turned back to the rest of the people in the lobby, his eyes filled with a mix of disappointment and determination. "I'm not going to allow this to happen anymore. You all deserve to be treated with respect and dignity, and I promise you things will be changing starting today." He then turned to Olivia, his eyes filled with gratitude. "And Liv, I've been watching you from my office. Thank you for standing up for what's right, even when you knew it might not be the popular decision. I will be promoting you to branch manager. You will be in charge from now on, and I trust that you will make sure things will be run right." Olivia's eyes widened in shock. "Mr. Carter, I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything. Just do a good job," Ethan responded. He then looked over at Ellie, his eyes filled with respect and love. "And finally to Ms. Thompson, thank you for everything you've done. I am forever grateful for your guidance, your wisdom, and your friendship. I will never forget what you've taught me." Ellie just smiled knowingly. Ethan then turned to all of the people in the lobby and said, "And finally to all of you, thank you for your patience. I am committed to making this the best bank in America, where everyone is treated with the respect that they deserve." He then led Ellie out of the bank, leaving the rest of the employees stunned and silent. As they walked through the doors, Ellie turned to Ethan. "There's just one thing I need you to do." "Anything," Ethan replied. "Don't tell anyone about what we did today, and please, don't try to change the system. Let people figure it out for themselves. If they want to change, they will. They have to learn from it." Ethan nodded. "I understand. Thank you for everything." Ellie just smiled and nodded, and then slowly walked away. Ethan watched her disappear, realizing that she had not only changed his life, but also the lives of everyone in the bank today. He knew things would never be the same, and he had to do everything in his power to make sure that the scales of justice were always in balance. Wow, what a story, right? It's amazing how much can happen in one day. So tell me, where are you watching from? What did you think? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like and share this video if you felt inspired. It's always better when we all share our stories.